Drink it, Grace. Those were the words Mike said to his wife of 10 years while watching her hands shake over a glass she didn't ask for. What Grace didn't know was that the man she built from nothing, the man she sold her gold for, prayed for, defended, had already chosen another woman over her. But this wasn't just an affair. This was betrayal with a plan. Because somewhere in the city, a mistress was whispering, "As long as she lives, everything belongs to her." What happens when a husband decides love is an obstacle? What happens when greed becomes more important than loyalty? And what happens when the woman he tried to destroy survives? This is not just a story about cheating. This is a story about power, about manipulation, about a woman who refused to die quietly. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll understand one thing. Never underestimate the wife who helped you build your empire. If you never subscribe, please do, and like, share, and comment. Let's begin. Grace, drink it. Mike's voice was calm, too calm. Grace stood in the dining room, staring at the glass of juice on the table. "Why are you watching me like that?" she asked slowly. "I'm not watching you," Mike replied, forcing a smile. "I made it myself. You said you were tired." Grace didn't sit. For 10 years of marriage, Mike had never made her juice. "Since when do you enter the kitchen?" she asked lightly. Mike laughed. "Can't a husband surprise his wife?" Silence. The air between them felt tight. Grace walked closer. She lifted the glass but didn't drink. "Mike, look at me." He hesitated before meeting her eyes. "Is there something you want to tell me?" He swallowed. "You're overthinking." She placed the glass back on the table, and in that moment, something invisible cracked between them. Before the fall. 3 years earlier, Mike had nothing. Grace was the one who believed in him when he was still printing business proposals in a cyber cafe. "Take my savings," she had told him. "No," Mike protested back then. "It's all you have." Grace smiled. "Then we'll have nothing together." She invested in his first contract. She connected him to her uncle in Abuja. She prayed for him every morning. When money started flowing, she celebrated him like he built it alone. But success changed Mike. Not suddenly. Slowly. He bought new suits, new friends, new habits. And then, Vanessa. The mistress Vanessa didn't enter Mike's life quietly. She entered like temptation always does. Confident. She was his new marketing executive. Young, sharp, fearless. The first time she walked into his office, she didn't greet him like an employee. She studied him. "You don't look like a man who should be limited," she said boldly. Mike raised an eyebrow. "Limited? Yes," she replied, sitting without invitation. "You've outgrown your environment," he laughed. "You just started working here." Vanessa leaned forward. "And I already see you deserve more, more." That word followed him home, the whisper that changed everything. One night in a hotel after a business trip, Vanessa lay beside Mike. "Are you happy?" she asked. Mike stared at the ceiling. "What kind of question is that?" "With your wife." He didn't answer immediately. Vanessa turned to face him. "You built success. You deserve excitement, not routine." "She stood by me," Mike muttered. Vanessa's voice softened. "And now she stands in your way." Mike turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Vanessa didn't blink. "Imagine your life without restrictions." He sat up. "Grace is not a restriction." Vanessa touched his chest lightly. "Then why do you look trapped?" That night, doubt entered his heart. And once doubt enters, loyalty begins to die. Back to the glass. "Grace," Mike said again in the present. "You're being dramatic." Grace sat slowly. "Mike, who is Vanessa?" His body froze. "Vanessa, my staff." "Just your staff?" "Yes." Grace's eyes filled, but she refused to cry. "I saw the messages." Silence. "You said you loved her," she continued. Mike stood up abruptly. "You went through my phone? Answer me." He didn't. That was the answer. The turning point is passed in cold silence. Then suddenly, Mike became attentive again. "Let's fix this," he said one evening. Grace wanted to believe him. "I don't want to lose my marriage," she whispered. He held her hands. "You won't." But across town, Vanessa was growing impatient. "The real plan." "You're weak," Vanessa snapped during their next meeting. "I'm handling it," Mike replied. "You're hesitating." "It's not easy." Vanessa's eyes hardened. "As long as she lives in that house, you'll never be free." Mike rubbed his face. "I can't just leave her." Vanessa stepped closer. "Then remove the obstacle." He looked at her slowly. "You mean divorce?" Vanessa's silence said something darker. The collapse weeks later, Grace suddenly became very ill. She collapsed one afternoon in the living room. "Mike," she whispered faintly. "Help me." He pretended panic. Grace, stay with me. At the hospital, doctors were confused. This didn't happen naturally, one doctor said carefully. Mike felt sweat gather behind his neck. Meanwhile, Vanessa sent a message. Is it done? The unexpected twist, but Grace was not foolish. After discovering Mike's affair, she had quietly taken precautions. She documented everything. She saved messages, she changed property documents, and most importantly, she told someone. Her younger brother, Daniel. Daniel was not calm like Grace. When he visited the hospital and saw his sister weak, his eyes darkened. Mike, he said quietly in the hallway, if anything happens to my sister, I will destroy you. Mike forced a laugh. You're being emotional. Daniel leaned closer. No, I'm being patient. Hospital room confrontation. Grace woke later that night. Mike sat beside her. You'll be fine, he said softly. Grace looked at him. Did you ever love me? He hesitated. Yes. Past tense? She asked weakly. He had no answer. Tears slid down her face. For money for another woman, you would throw away 10 years? His voice broke slightly. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Mike? Silence filled the room. And in that silence, Grace understood something painful. The man she built no longer existed. The beginning of revenge. What Mike didn't know, Grace survived. And survival changes everything. Because a wounded woman can cry. But a betrayed woman can calculate. Is she stable now? Daniel's voice was sharp as he cornered the doctor outside Grace's hospital room. She's responding to treatment, the doctor replied carefully. But what affected her system didn't happen in one day. It was gradual. Gradual? Daniel repeated. You mean someone has been harming her slowly? The doctor lowered his voice. I didn't say that, but this wasn't accidental. Behind the half-closed door, Mike heard every word. His heart pounded. Gradual. That word terrified him because it meant investigation, and investigation meant exposure. Inside the hospital room, Grace opened her eyes slowly. The room was quiet except for the steady sound of machines. Mike stood by the window, pretending to be worried. Grace, he said softly when he noticed she was awake. Thank God. She studied his face. For the first time in 10 years, she saw a stranger. Why are you scared, Mike? She asked weakly. He blinked. Scared? I'm not scared. You look like someone waiting for bad news. His throat tightened. You almost died, he said quickly. That's why. Grace's lips curved faintly. No, she whispered. That's not why. He turned away, because deep down he knew she was beginning to see through him. Vanessa grows impatient across town. Vanessa paced inside her apartment. Mike stood near the door. She's still alive? Vanessa snapped. Yes, Mike said through clenched teeth. She's recovering. Vanessa laughed coldly. You're useless. Lower your voice, he hissed. She walked toward him slowly. You promised me. I didn't promise you anything. You said you wanted freedom. I do. Then why is she still breathing, Mike? He stared at her. Stop talking like that. Vanessa's eyes hardened. As long as Grace lives, everything belongs to her. The house, the company shares, the investments. Mike's head snapped up. What do you mean? Vanessa folded her arms. You didn't know? Most of your early assets are in her name. Silence. Mike felt the ground shift beneath him. That's not possible. Vanessa shrugged. Check properly. The discovery that night, Mike searched through documents in his home office. His hands trembled as he opened file after file. Property documents, share certificates, bank agreements, Grace's name, Grace's signature, Grace's control. He sank into his chair. 10 years ago, when he had nothing, he signed whatever she asked him to sign. He trusted her, and now everything legally belonged to her. The house he brought Vanessa into, the cars he drove proudly, the business expansion, all tied to Grace. Mike pressed his hands against his face. This can't be happening. Daniel starts digging. Meanwhile, Daniel wasn't sitting quietly. He hired a private investigator. He collected hospital reports. He traced pharmacy purchases. He checked security footage around the house. One evening, he confronted Mike directly. They stood in the hospital parking lot. You look tired, Daniel said coldly. Mike forced a smile. Stress. Daniel stepped closer. If I find out you had anything to do with my sister's condition... Mike cut him off. Be careful what you accuse me of. Daniel didn't blink. I'm not accusing. I'm gathering facts. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, Mike realized something dangerous. Daniel was smarter than he looked. Grace's awakening days later, Grace was discharged. She returned home weaker but clearer. She walked slowly through the living room. Every corner carried memories. The couch where they laughed, the dining table where they planned dreams, the kitchen where she prayed for him. She turned to Mike. "Tell her to stop coming here." Mike stiffened. "Who?" "Vanessa." Silence. "You think I don't know?" Grace continued. "She has been inside this house." Mike's voice rose defensively. "You're imagining things." Grace looked at him with quiet strength. "No, Mike, I'm remembering everything." He felt uneasy. She was no longer the soft woman who ignored signs. Something inside her had changed. The emotional explosion that night, they argued for the first time in years. "You've changed," Mike shouted. "No," Grace replied calmly. "I finally opened my eyes." "You're paranoid." "I almost died, Mike." He froze. Her voice cracked. "I almost died, and you're worried about defending another woman." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Was I ever enough for you?" Mike had no answer, because the truth was ugly. Success had fed his ego, Vanessa had fed his pride, and Grace had simply loved him. The business begins to fall. A week later, Mike received shocking news. A major contract was canceled. Then another investor pulled out. Then a bank requested documentation review. He stormed into his office. "What is happening?" he shouted at his accountant. "Sir?" "Some documents require Grace's signature." Mike's jaw tightened. "She's resting." The accountant swallowed. "Without her authorization, certain accounts can't move." Mike felt cold. Grace held the power, and she hadn't said a word. The calm before revenge that evening, Grace called Daniel into her room. "I don't want noise," she said quietly. Daniel frowned. "He tried to destroy you." Grace nodded slowly. "I know." "Then why are you calm?" She looked out the window. "Because loud revenge is temporary. Silent revenge lasts." Daniel watched his sister carefully. "I'm not going to fight him," she continued. "I'm going to let him collapse." Vanessa's recklessness. Vanessa grew furious when she noticed Mike's fear. "You're losing everything because of her," she screamed. "Lower your voice." Mike snapped. She laughed bitterly. "You should have finished what you started." Mike grabbed her arm. "Stop saying that." She pulled away. "If you don't fix this, I will." Mike stared at her. "What does that mean?" Vanessa smiled coldly. "You'll see." The public humiliation days later at a business gala, Vanessa made a bold mistake. She appeared publicly on Mike's arm. Guests whispered, but what shocked everyone, Grace walked in, elegant, strong, unshaken. The room fell silent. Vanessa's smile faded. Grace approached slowly. "Good evening," she said calmly. Mike looked trapped. Vanessa forced confidence. "You look better." Grace's eyes held hers. "Yes, I survived." The words carried weight. She turned to Mike. "We need to talk. Not as a wife, but as a woman who now understood her power. The shift." Later that night, Grace handed Mike an envelope. "What is this?" he asked. "Temporary control notice," she replied. "Until investigations are complete, I'm freezing certain joint assets." Mike's face drained of color. "You can't do that." "I can," she said quietly, "and I just did." For the first time, Mike realized he didn't just betray his wife, he underestimated her. "Play it again." Daniel's voice was low but dangerous. The private investigator nodded and pressed the laptop key. The screen flickered. Audio filled the room. Vanessa's voice, clear, cold. "As long as she lives, everything belongs to her." Mike's voice followed, tense. "Lower your voice." Then Vanessa again, "You should have finished what you started." The recording ended. Silence swallowed the room. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Send me a copy of everything." The investigator nodded. "There's more." Daniel's eyes darkened. "Good." The confrontation. Vanessa was not expecting Daniel. She opened her apartment door halfway. "Yes?" Daniel forced it open gently and stepped inside. "You're bold," she said, crossing her arms. "I don't like wasting time," Daniel replied calmly. Vanessa smirked. "If you're here to defend your weak sister," Daniel dropped his phone on the table. The audio began playing. Her own voice filled the room. Her smirk vanished. "You recorded me?" She snapped. "No," Daniel replied. "You were careless." Vanessa tried to laugh it off. "That proves nothing." Daniel leaned closer. "It proves intent." Her eyes flickered with unease. "You don't scare me," she said. "I'm not trying to scare you," Daniel replied quietly. "I'm warning you." "About what?" He held her gaze. "When everything falls, don't say you weren't given a chance to walk away." He turned and left. For the first time since this began, Vanessa felt fear. Mike's collapse begins. The next week was brutal. Headlines began circulating online. Financial irregularities under review in Mike Industries. Investors requested emergency meetings. Board members demanded explanations. Mike stormed into Grace's room. You did this. Grace looked up calmly from her tablet. Did what? You're freezing accounts, triggering audits, humiliating me. She tilted her head slightly. I'm protecting my assets. Our assets, he shouted. Grace's eyes hardened. No, Mike. Mine. He froze. You signed those papers years ago, remember? His breathing became uneven. You're destroying everything we built. Grace stood slowly. No, you destroyed it the moment you chose her. Silence. Then she added softly, I'm just removing my name from the ashes. Vanessa's desperation. Vanessa could feel the walls closing in. Mike stopped answering her calls. When he finally showed up at her apartment, he looked exhausted. This is your fault, he snapped. My fault. She laughed. You're the one who lost control. You pushed me. Vanessa's eyes flared. I pushed you, or did you just need an excuse? He had no answer. She stepped closer. If you go down, I go down too. Mike stared at her. What does that mean? Vanessa smiled coldly. You think I don't have messages, proof, conversations? His blood ran cold. You wouldn't. Try me. For the first time, Mike realized he wasn't in control of Vanessa. Vanessa was in control of him. Grace's calm strategy. Meanwhile, Grace met with her lawyer quietly. I don't want noise, she said. You have enough evidence to press charges, the lawyer replied. Grace nodded slowly. I don't want him in prison. The lawyer looked surprised. Why? Grace's voice was steady. Prison is fast. I want him to feel everything slowly. She slid a file across the table. Prepare the divorce papers and initiate full asset recovery. The lawyer opened the file. His eyebrows lifted. You planned all this? Grace's lips curved faintly. I learned from my husband. The public explosion. The board meeting was chaotic. Mr. Mike, we've received complaints from stakeholders, one member said sharply. Another added, there are internal recordings suggesting serious misconduct. Mike felt sweat gather on his back. Those recordings are manipulated, he barked. The door opened. Grace walked in. Culligant. Powerful. The entire room shifted. I requested this meeting, she said softly. Mike's heart dropped. You had no right, she cut him off. As majority shareholder, I do. The board members looked shocked. One whispered, majority? Grace placed documents on the table. Due to breach of trust and reputational risk, I am temporarily suspending Mike from executive control. The room exploded in murmurs. Mike stood abruptly. You can't do this. Grace's eyes met his. I already did. The emotional breakdown that night, Mike returned home alone. The house felt empty. He walked into the bedroom. Grace's side of the wardrobe was empty. He found a letter on the bed. His hands trembled as he opened it. Mike, I loved you when you had nothing. I loved you when you became something. But I will not love you while you try to make me nothing. You didn't just betray me. You underestimated me. That was your biggest mistake. He dropped the letter. For the first time since this began, he cried. Not because he loved her enough, but because he lost everything. The unexpected twist. Just when Mike thought it couldn't get worse, news broke. Vanessa had leaked private messages between them to a media blog. The headline read, CEO in scandalous plot against wife for control of company. Mike stared at his phone in disbelief. He called Vanessa immediately. You ruined me. She laughed bitterly. You ruined yourself. You said you loved me. Vanessa's voice turned cold. I loved the version of you who was powerful, not this weak man. The call ended. Mike stood alone, destroyed by the very woman he chose. Grace's final move, for now. Weeks later, Grace stood in front of a mirror in her new apartment. Daniel entered quietly. It's done, he said. She nodded. Full control? Yes. And him? Daniel hesitated. He's finished. Grace closed her eyes briefly. No joy, no excitement, just closure. Good, she whispered, but deep inside her, the real revenge had not even started yet. Because what Mike didn't know, Grace still held one final piece of evidence, something that could permanently bury both him and Vanessa, and she was waiting for the perfect moment to use it. Rain fell heavily that night. Mike sat alone in the dark living room of the once proud mansion. No staff, no laughter, no Grace, just silence. His phone buzzed, unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Hello? Grace's voice came through, calm, controlled. Mike, his breath caught. Grace, please, meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. my lawyer's office. Grace, listen to me. 10 a.m., she repeated. The line went dead. The last evidence. The next morning, Mike walked into the law office looking like a shadow of himself. Grace was already seated, elegant in white, untouchable. Her lawyer sat beside her. Sit down, Mike, she said without emotion. He obeyed. Grace, I made mistakes. She looked at him. Mistakes are forgetting birthdays, not plotting against your wife. His face tightened. I never wanted you dead. Grace slid a flash drive across the table. What is this? He asked. Security footage from our home office, she replied. He froze. I installed internal cameras after I first suspected you, she continued calmly. They record sound. His heart pounded violently. She pressed play on the laptop. The screen showed him, alone in the office weeks ago, searching through documents, on the phone with Vanessa. His voice echoed in the room. If this works, everything returns to me. Vanessa's voice replied through speaker. She won't see it coming. Mike's face drained of color. That doesn't prove anything, he whispered weakly. Grace leaned forward. There's more. The next clip showed him placing something inside a cabinet where Grace kept her health supplements. No graphic detail, but the intention was clear. Mike's hands began to shake. Grace, please. Her eyes filled with tears for the first time. Why? He had no answer. Not a real one. Greed sounded stupid now. Lust sounded cheap. Vanessa sounded like a mistake. But betrayal had already destroyed everything. Vanessa's fall across town, Vanessa was facing her own consequences. After leaking messages to the blog, she expected sympathy. Instead, the public turned on her. Online headlines labeled her the mistress behind the CEO scandal. Brands cut ties, her landlord asked questions, friends stopped answering calls, her phone rang. It was Grace. Vanessa hesitated before answering. What do you want? Vanessa asked bitterly. Grace's voice was steady. You thought you were winning. Vanessa scoffed. I still can. No, Grace replied softly. You can't. Silence. I have recordings of you encouraging criminal behavior, Grace continued. If I submit them fully, you won't recover from it. Vanessa's voice shook slightly. You wouldn't. I survived you, Grace said. Don't test me. For the first time, Vanessa understood she had chosen the wrong woman to fight. Mike breaks back at the lawyer's office. Mike fell to his knees. Grace, please. Don't send me to prison. The word prison echoed heavily. Grace stood up slowly. I loved you. Her voice cracked. I defended you when people said you were too ambitious. She wiped a tear. I defended you when my own family doubted you. She looked down at him. And you planned to erase me. Mike sobbed. I was stupid. I was blind. Grace shook her head. No, you were selfish. The choice. The lawyer cleared his throat. With this evidence, we can proceed legally. Grace was quiet, very quiet. Finally, she spoke. No. Both men looked at her in shock. Mike lifted his head slowly. No, he whispered. Grace inhaled deeply. I don't want your imprisonment. Mike burst into tears again. Thank you. She raised her hand. I'm not done. Her voice turned cold. I want you alive. I want you to wake up every morning knowing you destroyed your own empire. Silence. You will sign full asset transfer. You will resign permanently. You will disappear from my life. Mike's shoulders collapsed. And if I refuse, Grace's eyes hardened, then I release everything. He didn't hesitate. I'll sign. The final confrontation. That evening, Grace went to Vanessa's apartment one last time. Vanessa opened the door slowly. You came alone? Grace nodded. They stood facing each other. Two women. One betrayed, one ambitious. You think you won? Vanessa asked bitterly. Grace smiled faintly. There was never a competition. Vanessa's eyes burned. He chose me. Grace shook her head. No, he chose himself. Silence filled the room. You helped him try to destroy me. Grace continued softly. But you forgot something. What? Vanessa snapped. I built him. Those words hit harder than any insult. Grace turned to leave. Vanessa called out, You'll end up alone. Grace paused at the door. Alone is better than betrayed. She walked away without looking back. Hashar, the unexpected tragedy. Weeks later, news spread quietly. Mike's company officially collapsed. Investors withdrew permanently. His reputation never recovered. One night, overwhelmed by debt and public disgrace, Mike suffered a severe breakdown. Daniel heard about it and told Grace. She sat quietly after hearing the news. No smile, no celebration, just silence. Do you feel satisfied? Daniel asked. Grace looked out the window. No. Then what do you feel? She took a deep breath. Free. The woman who survived months passed. Grace launched her own consulting firm under her sole name. Her story quietly inspired other women in business circles. People began calling her the woman who survived betrayal. One evening at a business event, a young woman approached her. Ma'am, how did you stay strong? Grace smiled gently. I didn't stay strong. The girl looked confused. I broke, Grace continued. But I rebuilt myself stronger than the man who tried to break me. Closing scene. Back in the old mansion, now sold, Mike walked past the gate one last time. The lights were off. The name on the property deed had changed. He whispered to himself, I had everything. But he didn't, because he traded loyalty for lust and respect for greed. And in the end, the only thing he truly lost was the woman who made him.